All right. Hi, everybody. So I'm Kyle Bertin. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Two Boxes. So based on the question, I'm guessing most of you don't know much about retail returns fraud. So hopefully you'll learn something new today. I'm going to start off some of the interactive. How many of you have returned something you bought online in the past month? Show of hands. Okay. So a lot of people do this every day. Not many people know about how much fraud exists in this ecosystem. Have you ever thought about what happens to your returns? Probably not. You drop it off, out of sight, out of mind. More often than not nowadays, you actually get your refund the minute you drop it off, especially if you're dropping off of Amazon. What actually happens is all your returns are going to go back to a fulfillment center. I was just in one yesterday, Geoda's facility in Dallas, going to another facility out near the airport today. This is what they look like. Tend to be really large, 500,000 million square foot facilities run by large 3PLs, names like DHL, Ryder, Geodas, Radial, many more. This is actually a Radial facility. What you see if you spend a lot of time in these facilities, like I do, is that over trillions of dollars of largely e-commerce purchases are fulfilled from these facilities. If you're a logistics nerd like many in the room, they're honestly amazing. There's a ton of automation, conveyance, software, visibility for just about every metric that exists in the receipt to outbound side of that building. But when you come to the returns section, this is legitimately what you see. These are photos from a publicly traded 3PL's largest fulfillment center in Chino, California. You see extremely, extremely poor systems, piles of unsorted returns, a ton of spreadsheets. When investors or other folks in the industry ask me who does Two Boxes compete with, I tend to say Google Sheets and Microsoft Excel. This leads to a ton of waste, fraud, and abuse. So I'm a millennial. I have to throw a meme in every presentation here. This is legitimately what I think the industry is facing when it comes to e-commerce returns in particular, is facilities are not designed to deal with this. And so they just effectively turn a blind eye to it. And most shippers historically been okay with this because e-commerce penetration rates in the United States are only about 20%. Everybody in this room is focused on moving freight forward for 95% of their job, not taking things back. I like to say that I think that e-commerce returns and reverse logistics in general are at least 10 to 15 years behind the forward freight markets. So what does this mean? There's really, really bad operations and very bad systems, which means that returns fraud is extremely rampant, and it's everything from basic to criminal. So basic thing that many people have probably done in this room before is return an item that maybe you tried on and wore, and you said, "Hey, I didn't like it. I'm going to send it back." In most cases, you're actually abusing the retailer's return policy. That's very common. About 10 to 12% of returns that we see through Two Boxes on a daily basis are things that would broadly be categorized as wardrobing, meaning somebody bought an item, wore it to an event, tried it out, used it for some sort of purpose, sent it back. Not supposed to do that. Increasingly, though, as retailers are catching on to these trends, you're starting to see that very, very organized criminal organizations are doing this at scale. Fun fact, Amazon actually has to deploy X-ray technology in their electronics return processing facilities to identify like really highly organized electronic theft, right? Things like buying a 256 gigabyte storage system and returning one that's 10 times smaller, right? From the outside, they look the same. From the inside, the components are different. Price points are very different. Because returns are a black box, retailers have basically no control over this. And without the right tools, people are exploiting this at scale. So we see that about 70% of fraudulent and abusive returns are automatically refunded or refunded even after somebody has identified the fraud because there's a bad system in place to communicate between logistics providers and shippers. We see that this is extremely, extremely onerous to retailers. In our sample stats, we see that many retailers are losing 1 to 5% of their revenue to retail returns fraud. And as the industry is evolving, very organized groups are starting to do things like manipulate carrier shipping labels and milestones to make it look as though cargo has been delivered or parcels have been delivered, when actually they're in the hands of the organized criminals and being sold on marketplaces like Amazon, Facebook, and many more. So just to give you a sense of how big this is, because I think people are surprised by this, last year, over $100 billion was lost to retail returns fraud. 15% of returns that we see in Two Boxes are fraudulent or abusive. That tends to line up with industry stats. And the last two stats are what get me a little bit, kind of upset here, is that this is now becoming very commonplace and accepted. 52% of shoppers admitted to engaging in at least one form of returns abuse last year. Meaning everything from they returned an item that they previously used to they returned an empty box to they returned an old pair of shoes and bought a new pair of shoes. Half of consumers are doing this. 41% of Gen Z actually admitted to returning a different item than they purchased last year with the intent to get a full refund for that item. And if you think that it's just Gen Z, it's actually boomers as well. About 38% of boomers admitted to doing the same thing last year. When asked why, a lot of people say, well, retailers are making plenty of money. Amazon's making plenty of money. I can just do this. So what we do is we build software that's used in warehouses all across the world at this point. We're operating in 5 countries. And the root cause of why a lot of this happens is it's extremely difficult to train frontline staff and give them the right tools on how to identify that the right inventory came back and how to identify the quality of that return and whether everybody in this room should get a refund, yes or no. So we're enabling this to happen with 80% less training. We're actually increasing the efficiency of this process, which is another huge reason why this happens, right? Retailers are not willing in most cases to make you wait 2 to 3 weeks to process your return because the warehouse is so slow at it. We enable same day or next day processing with the technology that we have. Last but not least, we're starting to create really a feedback loop between logistics providers and shippers so that they're able to collaborate around what inventory is coming back, what the quality of that inventory is, and whether or not folks in this room should get a refund. Just to show you some examples, if anybody wants to, if anybody spent a lot of time on LinkedIn, which I'm guessing is most of you, you can go and follow my co-founder. He has a fun web series that we've been promoting that's called Shit People Return on LinkedIn. And it's kind of ridiculous, right? But I think it proves the point, right? Which is we see everything from, this is actually my favorite. This is a brand that a lot of people probably know and love. That's Texas-based. That's an online direct-to-consumer cookware brand. And one of the most common things that they see right now is folks returning old cookware, buying new cookware and returning old cookware. So just, hey, go and make over your kitchen pots and pans and utensils for free. Well-worn boots, I actually can say who that is. It's a pretty beloved Texas brand called Tecovas. We power their returns processing in Dallas, Texas. They see somewhere in the range of 5 to 7% of their returns where folks are, buying a pair of cowboy boots, wearing them to a wedding, returning them with the intent to get a full refund. So what we're starting to do is bring the right tools into the warehouse to automate refunding based on effectively credit scores and profiles that we're able to build on end consumers. We're able to do things like automate receipt scans to make sure that we confirm that even if the carrier delivery status says that that item has been delivered, confirming whether that item has actually arrived to the facility, because it is shockingly easy to manipulate carrier tracking milestones. And then last but not least, we're capturing real-time photos and broad level analytics across large data sets to understand where bad actors are and how they're actually operating. Just a kind of quick case study here. There's real money here. This is a relatively small brand that we saved hundreds of thousands of dollars for in the past year, really by helping them identify who these bad actors were. It tends to be a relatively small percentage of consumers, but they transact at a high volume and they take advantage of retailers at scale. So a little bit about us. We process this year, we'll do somewhere in the range of $500 million of returns for a lot of high growth brands that many of you probably purchased from before. We primarily serve third-party logistics providers. So we work with some of the names that are on this list, among others that I can't quite name yet. And we've got a team that's really a team of experts across logistics, technology, and robotics. And we're starting to bring, kind of the sophistication of outbound logistics into the return section. So I appreciate you all listening to me today. I know I'm probably like a little bit of a fish out of water in this ecosystem, but hope you learned something today. If any of you are from larger logistics companies that are serving, high volume e-commerce shippers and other kind of, apparel, footwear, accessories, would love to chat with you. And if you ever just want to reach out and learn more about reverse logistics and returns fraud, this is my life. So would love to chat with you all about it. Thanks for having me.